Conor Benn, he goes the distance. Devin Haney reacts. The fans want to know the $1 million question. What happened to Conor Benn's power post PED failure? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Subscribe. I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. Conor Benn just defeated Peter Dobson, Pistol Pete Dobson. Not really a big name, not a real experienced guy in the grand scheme of things with the bigger names. That's who he fought in Las Vegas. Now, before I break down the fight and give you guys what Devin Haney said, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss a thing. And I gotta admit, Conor Benn, there's a lot of questionable things ever since he failed the PED test. He claims he ate too many eggs, but it's looking a little bit shaky. Furthermore, DAZN has such a weird business model. They first came out and said pay-per-view is dead. We know that's cap, because they're about that pay-per-view life, and they were forced, and I do mean forced, to later go and adopt a pay-per-view model, which is something they said they were going to rid the game of. They did not do that. So that's kind of a strike one. You also had Eddie Hearn, who was the front man for DAZN when they broke ground in America, and basically he said it was the American takeover, and American promoters would be, oh, I'm so scared. They'd be shaking in their boots, and it would create such a disruption for, I don't know, boxing promotion, that American promoters like PBC and Top Rank would basically be out of business, and or it wasn't going to look good for them. And then they've seemingly retreated in terms of trying to take over America. Now you have them bringing a UK guy who failed a PED test for performance enhancing UGs, right? And they're putting him in Las Vegas, where he has no fans. He's not a big name and a big draw in Vegas. He wasn't like an Anthony Joshua from the UK, where on his way up, people were kind of checking. They were hearing about this Anthony Joshua. Meet with me, it's mad. We were hearing about Anthony Joshua, and I can attest to this because I'm on the west side. I'm on the west coast of things. So I live in California, and it's been that way. Las Vegas is the next state over, right? So the bottom line is no one's really requesting Conor Benn fights, especially if it's not against an American name that people know. Enter Conor Benn versus Dobson, right? But strangely, Eddie Hearn, Rematch Room, and DAZN elected to put this obscure fight with a guy who's not really branded in America, and they had the fight come on like 2 o'clock p.m. my time to accommodate for the UK. So let me get this straight. UK fighter with no American profile. Then you make the ring walk and schedule the event. So the card literally started at like 10:30 a.m. my time, Pacific Standard Time in California. That's just weird. That's weird. Main events up by 2 p.m. That's just not primetime boxing. And I don't care what anybody says. People have to work. This ain't the UK where we just sit and eat spotted dick and tea and crumpets. People have jobs, and we're not like me. I'm fortunate to be working for myself, but there's a lot of people who have a standard 9-to-5 job. So it's just not prime time in America. So I don't know why they would put a fight like this on at that said time. The other thing is just the fact that the nature of Conor Benn. He is just not a guy who's been branded, and he failed a PED test. So no one's really even checking for him. And then you couple that with the fact that he's not fighting a Jerron Boots Ennis, which I'll get to later. He's not fighting a guy like Virgil Ortiz or somebody that American fans would probably recognize and know. Weird decision. And I know some of you guys, I know the audience in boxing, as I'm saying these things, I know a lot of people who are going to watch my content didn't even know Conor Benn already fought, or they later found out after the fight via social media. Needless to say, Peter Dobson, he didn't really do bad. The scorecards were really wide, which was cap. They had it like 119 to 109 or whatever, cap. Peter Dobson was clocking Conor Benn, especially late in the fight when he started to open up. My only criticism, because in my fight predictions and post fights, I give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly for Peter Dobson was he was inexperienced, and I think it showed at this level. He didn't have the big fight experience, so he wasn't all the way comfortable. So he let some early rounds kind of slide where he was just not throwing enough offense. That's the only real criticism, but he was pretty mindful on defense. He did get hit with shots, but, you know, Conor Benn was coming in hot and, you know, trying to unleash fury and, you know, mark him up or stop him. So he was real gung-ho. And it took 2-3 rounds for Dobson to kind of get into his flow. But these are pivotal rounds, especially when you're the underdog. So that's where the experience matters. So needless to say, this was a more competitive fight than a lot of the DAZN commentators would lead you to believe. Listen, the DAZN commentary is buns. It's absolutely absurd. They were glazing Conor Benn as if Dobson was just getting worked over. And I hate commentary like that because this was premature. The way they were giving the commentary on DAZN made it sound like Dobson was on his way out, like he was seconds away from being stopped or something. And that literally was not the case in the fight. Conor Benn came out super explosive or fast or whatever you want to call it, but he couldn't sustain that tempo and he couldn't sustain that pacing for the whole fight, and he had to slow down. And it looks like that was the game plan for Dobson, to allow him to blow his wad and be mindful for the early rounds and then start, you know, releasing his shots. And that's kind of what he did. You've also seen a body transformation. This is an old picture of Conor Benn, and you look at him now and he does look smaller. So this Dobson fight was terrible for Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn, and I'm going to explain why. As I stated earlier in this video, you have the man fighting on non-prime time in America. Why even fight here? I get it. He's can't fight in the UK because he was eating eggs and he failed, and he has like a bunch of he hasn't been acquitted basically in the UK, so he can't fight in the UK. But why bring him here? We don't want to see this. We didn't really call for this fight. I just watched it because I'm a boxing fan and it's my job to report boxing. But other than that, this wasn't a big fight. But beyond that, this was a bad fight because the reality is, and I'm not here to beat around the bush, so hopefully you guys like somebody in boxing who's real with you and very direct. The bottom line is Conor Benn, he's 23-0 with 14 knockouts. And his last two fights against Peter Dobson and this random Rodolfo Orozco, right? He went the decision with both of the guys, unanimous decisions. One was only a 10-rounder, one was a 12-rounder, right? And the Rodolfo, he did test positive, but either way, I mean, you could still get stopped even if you're tested positive for a banned substance. And realistically speaking, so did Conor Benn. He tested positive just before that. So needless to say, his last two fights have been unanimous decisions. Just before that, he clipped Chris Van Heerdien, and just before that, he had Chris Algieri, and these were like these shocking, blazing knockouts of both Chris Algieri and Van Heerdien, especially the Algieri one, where he looks like he was completely separated from his senses. Right after that, he failed the PED test for the banned substance. So now you can see why people are questioning what's up with Conor Benn's power. You fought Chris Algieri and demolished him, even though he was semi-retired, but whatever. He's still a guy who's been there with Ruslan Provodnikov, Errol Spence, fought Van Heerdien, who fought Jaron Boots Ennis, and then you dispatch of them in the first couple of rounds, rounds 2 for Van Heerdien, round 4 for Algieri, and now you can't seemingly pull the trigger. That looks Super suspect. So if you're trying to convince the world that you're a clean athlete and you didn't knowingly ingest and you're not knowingly on something, how come you can't pull the trigger and get these same crazy knockouts that you were getting right before you failed? And the reality is there's a lot of people who test positive for something and then they never look like the same. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? If somebody was looking crazy, and see, this is the thing for Conor Benn. He used to get dropped. He was getting dropped by domestic level guys, domestic level UK guys. And his face was getting battered up and bruised and his eyes were shut. There's literally a fight where Conor Benn, his eyes were like literally smashed shut, right? Look, here it is. I don't be lying. This is Conor Benn. And then later his body transforms and he puts on all this size and looks way bigger. And he has these shocking knockouts. But this is another fight he got dropped in, right? So he getting dropped by randoms. Then you had this run where you started demolishing everybody like Algieri. And then now you can't shockingly knock people out. I don't know. That looks suspect. I don't care what nobody said. That looks suspect. You're not doing the same things you were doing prior to the drug test fail. Suspect. And again, this fight with Dobson, he was tagging Conor Benn. Eddie Hearn can cap and wolf all he wants and make it look like he's happy that Conor Benn went 12 rounds. But there's no way you're happy with the man who's still fighting this PED case, can't fight in the UK. You bring him to America, you put him on at an unimportant time in America, which is not prime time, and he's getting tagged up and he comes out guns blazing, can't sustain it, and then Dobson start getting off on him and the fight goes 12 rounds. So I wasn't really impressed. When I said stay tuned to the end of the video, I would talk about Boots. Boots would absolutely body Meg Thee Stallion, body yada 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 Conor Benn. He's too wild, too undisciplined in his approach to offense. He kind of runs the same play. He doesn't have no Canelo, David Benavidez, punch variety. And he does the same thing. Jab, 1-2. It's like you can time that. You can figure out ways around that. I think you could catch him, right? Dobson was inexperienced and did very well for himself, all things considered. Being the B-side, being inexperienced. I don't know where his real power is. And a lot of people, I know some people who sparred him and they told me not to sleep on Dobson. And he could fight. So I think he'll get some more opportunities just because he showed durability and pretty much showed poise given the lack of experience at this level. So I wouldn't mind seeing Pistol Pete Dobson again. Conor Benn, there was at one point people were questioning Virgil Ortiz, Jaron Ennis, and Conor Benn. Listen, the number one, it's always been the same. Number one, I thought it was Jaron Boots Ennis. Number two, Virgil Ortiz. And number three, Conor Benn. You know what I'm saying? In that trio, in that conversation. Out of the up-and-coming welterweights that were poised to do something, I still think Jaron Boots Ennis is that number one person. And then I even think Virgil Ortiz is definitely, like, if Virgil Ortiz were to fight Conor Benn, he would stop him. I'm very confident Virgil Ortiz would stop him. And this is the thing. This is how you know the UK be capping when it comes to boxing. They keep putting in Conor Benn with guys like Dobson who lack experience, possibly lack elite level power. But then Virgil Ortiz is signed with DAZN. So that should be an easy fight to make. If you could go to 160 for Chris Eubank Jr., go halfway there to 154 where you fought the Rodolfo dude. You fought your last fight before Dobson at 154. Go fight Virgil Ortiz on DAZN in a much better fight than Conor Benn's last two fights, and do American style drug testing. I put money on Virgil Ortiz. Money on Virgil Ortiz. Or fight a Boots. But instead, the names that Eddie Hearn brought up for Conor Benn was names like Kell Brook. Nobody wants to see that. Look at the UK. People always talk about Gervonta Davis. Oh, who's Gervonta fighting? Look at this dude. Conor Benn and Kell Brook, like the man literally retired. Chris Algieri literally was retired and doing podcasting, like commentator jobs. Why are you talking about Chris Eubank Jr. and he would have to cut so much weight in his mid-30s? Man, stop. Listen, I don't want this video to go on too long. I had a rant. I'll do another video if y'all want me to, talking about Conor Benn and Devin Haney. Type Devin Haney in the comment section if y'all want the video. Subscribe for more boxing content. I had to give y'all that real.